All right, let's do it, y'all. Let's do it. Ty Butler in the house. Ty D Butler is where you can find me on X. We're streaming live here on X and on YouTube as well. So get at us in the comments. Had a fun show yesterday talking to my man Jordan Renan about the New York Giants and their dysfunction. And listen, I want to just reiterate some of the stuff that I said yesterday, just because it was such a fascinating conversation, a riveting day here in New York City. I understand why, if you're a Giant fan, you are frustrated with this organization that since Super Bowl 46 has just one playoff win, and how year after year after year we're having a similar conversation to the one we were having just 48 hours ago. And that was, when is it time to fire our head coach and or our general manager? Which, by the way, the general manager should not be retained. Now, I found Ian O'Connor, his reporting earlier, to be encouraging. And I'll pull up what he said here, because, just listening to a bunch of people talk about the Giants, they're wondering about, and I asked this to Jordan Renan, how is it that Joe Shane was able to elude the pressure, if you will? And if we look at what Ian O'Connor had to say, who does a tremendous job, loved when I was working with Ian O'Connor over at ESPN New York. He's like, I don't believe Joe Shane is certain to be the Giants general manager next year. They needed someone to get things going on the search, especially with John Mara dealing with his illness. Ownership will make the final call on the coach in January, when I'd expect Shane to be reviewed again. And this is something that it has to encourage you as a Giant fan, because I don't come away from watching or having watched this team the last 3 years go 6-11, 3-14, and now start 2-8. My biggest takeaway isn't it's all coaching. Now, I've crushed Brian Dable, and rightfully so. He lost them that game this past Sunday against Chicago. They had no business losing that game. So a lot of it is coaching. And when you are a team that has a propensity to blow fourth quarter leads, that has to fall on somebody, especially when it's not like what we expected to be the weakness of this team is coming up short, and that's the offense. And, it's actually kind of ironic that we thought Jackson Dart was going to be the guy to help save Brian Dable's job, and in the end, it was Jackson Dart who got him fired. The injury, and how he had been in that medical tent one too many times, and also him popping so quickly, which led John Mara to believe, nah, man, this roster is too good to be 2-8. Our quarterback's playing well. We've got some talent on this team. Andrew Thomas is healthy. Yes, we've lost Neighbors and Scatterbo, but we've been raving about the potential on that defense. And time again against the Broncos and against the Cowboys and now against the Chicago Bears, that defense folded when it was time to pack them boys up. So if Jackson Dart is this good, why are we still losing games? Hit us up in the comments. Streaming live on YouTube, on X, Ty D Butler. Give us a follow on Instagram as well. We go right to the comments. My man Kevin Zwicker chimes in. Dart being there will make the Giants' job attractive regardless, but the general manager staying was a big mistake. Puts a new head coach and GM on two different timelines now. Also, Dart was a Dable guy. And you outlined something that I think a lot of Giant fans bring to the table with apprehension, and that is, are you pigeonholing yourself if Joe Shane is the general manager, because we're seeing this time and time again where head coaches want to have a say in who their GM is. Let's not look too far. We don't got to go too far. Look at Aaron Glenn, and we'll get to the Jets in a moment here. Aaron Glenn picked his general manager. So in addition to wanting influence over the guy making those decisions, you do want to operate on the same timeline, which is why if Joe Shane is picking the next head coach, that means you're giving Joe Shane an extension. You're not going to come in here and have a head coach be all you have is 2 years to get this thing right. It's not fair. You're going to have to give that head coach some financial security, so a 4 or 5 year contract, which is why I'm reading a lot into what Ian O'Connor says in this tweet. Joe Shane is still being evaluated. If Kafka ends up being the guy, then you keep Joe Shane, because now you're as you're searching for answers the rest of the way, you're arriving at a conclusion to some degree, and that was because if Kafka stays, it means the Giants won enough games to influence Mara into retaining him. It means the roster was always good enough to be better. It just wasn't being coached the right way. And Kafka provides that coaching that the Giants were desperately missing out on. So if that ends up being the case, then Joe Shane stays. But look, I'll be 100% honest, because I was going off about this yesterday. I now believe Joe Shane can absolutely lose his job as the general manager. Now, the statement said he's going to help lead the coaching search. All right. That does not mean that once we get to January and we're getting somewhere in his coaching search, we're making progress. That does not mean Joe Shane is going to keep his job. Because how about this? Which is where we get to the topic of the show today. Because there are some reports. Hey, man, Matt LaFleur out there with the Packers could be coaching for his job. The Green Bay Packers, who have Super Bowl aspirations. And since LaFleur got here in 2019, their floor, no pun intended, has been 8-9. And that was the season, Rodgers' last season in Green Bay, where, he had that injury and they should have made the playoffs. But that week 18 to the loss to the Detroit Lions at home knocked them out. But Matt LaFleur, much to my surprise, has proven to be a really good head coach. And when the Packers first brought him on, I remember thinking, what the hell are y'all doing? This man was he was the offensive coordinator of the Titans. And the Titans offense wasn't out here ringing off. The Titans were 25th in offense in 2018. Or 27th in offense. And I was just like, huh? Now, he was the offensive coordinator for that Rams team, that high-flying, high-powered offense that was number one in the league in 2017. So he's off the Sean McVay coaching tree. But when they first brought Matt LaFleur on, I was like, dog, what are y'all doing? He's proven me wrong. Matt LaFleur is a really good to great head coach. Last night notwithstanding. But if you're the Packers and you've invested so much capital, both financially, draft assets, like you went out there and traded for Micah Parsons. If you this year don't hit a certain level that they deem to be enough as far as unlocking the fullest potential of this team, he could be fired according to reports. So could that mean with him on the market, the Giants should be interested? And my answer to that is hell yeah. Giants should be interested. And if a guy like Matt LaFleur comes on board and says, I don't want to work with this general manager, I want to bring my own cat in. What are you going to do if you're John Mara? What does John Mara do if Tomlin gets let go or if Harbaugh gets let go? If Matt LaFleur becomes available, if Kevin Stefanski, a 2-time Coach of the Year award winner, becomes available, and he pulls up to you and he's like straight up like, yo, I want my own general manager. You gonna say no? Why? Because we desperately need to keep Joe Shane, who in his giant tenure is 20, 40, and 1. That's the guy I'm dying on the hill for? That I'm saying no to LaFleur, no to Tomlin, no to Harbaugh? Hell no. You must be out your goddamn mind. You must be out your mind if you think I am turning down the opportunity to hire one of those guys because I have to keep Joe Shane, which is why I don't think we've seen the end of this story. I still think Joe Shane can be fired, and it is influenced by that tweet that Ian O'Connor put out earlier today, which, if you're a Giant fan, has to leave you feeling encouraged because there's still a chance you can clean house. And if you have a general manager vacancy plus a head coaching vacancy with a quarterback in place, you are the single most attractive destination this coming off season. Sleepy Garnett DSO chimes in. Hypothetical question. If you get 100, oh my God. Come on, Sleepy. That's not cool. Come on, dog. We got you out here wilding out. Come on, man. Come on, Sleepy. Mad immature, dog. You get a warning. But if you come in here wilding like that, we're gonna have to kick you out. Anyway, Kevin's Wicker says we saw something similar with the Jags where Balky was set to be staying, but eventually the owner decided Cone. He wanted Cone bad enough to change his mind, so it's possible. Yeah, we saw Balky get fired last offseason when Cone got hired, and Balky was a disaster in Jacksonville. Like, how many head coaches are you going to allow this man to hire? He was a disaster. So you're right. That's an excellent comp. But to spin it to the New York Jets, I know it's not going to happen because the Jets are now dug in, and I guess it would be unfair to part with Glenn after one season. You want to give him a chance to improve the culture, yada, yada, yada. But I'm telling you, man, like you are probably going to be passing up on tremendous talents at head coach to keep this question mark. And I get turned off by a lot of things. I get turned off when you start 0-7. I get turned off when your team looks bad defensively and that's supposed to be your calling card. I get turned off by a squad that appears to be ill-prepared and undisciplined. I also get turned off by what I would deem loser behavior, which is this. Aaron Glenn didn't want to discuss injuries today after ESPN's Rich Cimini reported yesterday that Garrett Wilson would miss at least 3 to 4 weeks with the knee injury. Rich has all the answers. You can get it from him. Aaron Glenn, who are you who are you going to war with, my man? You're trying to change a culture. Now, I from this standpoint, I get Rich got a scoop from somebody. And Aaron Glenn has been tasked with cleaning up a lot of the mess, including leakage. So he wants to nip that in the bud. But fam, this is the business. You're trying to improve the culture. Why are you going to war with the New York media over silliness? over silliness. They're not coming at you. They're not disrespecting you. They're asking you who your quarterback is. They're asking you about your quarterback depth chart when we go back to the preseason. They're asking you about who the starting center is. They're asking you about what are your plans with Aaron Rodgers. And now they're asking you a legitimate question about Garrett Wilson re-aggravating a knee injury that has sidelined him for a couple weeks. Can we get an update on his status? Go ask Rich Cimini. And by the way, now that fantasy and gambling is so prevalent, is he even allowed to do this? Is this allowed? Because you have to operate with full transparency. You have to disclose injury statuses. So, as early as possible, we need to know what's going on with these players. I'm not being dramatic when I ask this. Doesn't he need to disclose that information? He can't just, go ask Rich Cimini. So you are going to, because you're mad at Rich, subject Jet reporters who cover this team day in and day out, who have a job to do, man. This is their livelihood. You are going to subject them to this type of garbage because you want to be up there petty, because you've got some resentment ostensibly toward Rich Cimini reporting something that you felt either was premature or inaccurate. If you really want to set him straight, then be like, nah, I saw this was reported yesterday. Actually, he's going to be a full participant tomorrow. Say something of substance. The pettiness, the wars, like that's just corny behavior. And I'm not one of these talk show hosts because they get real comfortable here in New York and it just blows my mind. But you can tell it's because of where they were not raised. I am not going to be the type of a person hurling insults and name calling to people. I'm not doing that because I know the type of tenor that it's set when you go out there and you start going off at the mouth, calling people all types of names. I don't play with that. Now, if I get angry, I get upset, or I feel like you really did something deserving of that, cool. But we got a bunch of folks out here on radio in New York and doing, media stuff that have gotten way too comfortable with the whole name calling thing and need to get their asses knocked out. I'm going to keep it a stack. So when it comes to Aaron Glenn, I'm annoyed. I'm irate. Like this stuff bothers me, but I don't want to do the name calling thing. But I can name call the behavior and the act that what he did today was corny. That was foul. That was just unwarranted. And I fail to understand what his end game is. What's the point? What's the point? Jet's strategy with Glenn is just hoping he's the guy, which isn't a strategy, but unfortunately, the dead nine signaled to me he could go 2-15. Yeah, he's not going anywhere. Aaron Glenn is the head coach, I would say, for at least the next 2 years. They're gonna get a quarterback either via the draft or in a trade this coming off season, and he's going to be allowed to see that process through, hoping that it bears favorable results. But any notion that Aaron Glenn is on some hot seat or that, this could lead to him getting canned quickly, y'all could eradicate that from your brains right now. Because we saw him make 2 monstrous trades at the deadline. You don't give a head coach the power to do that, uh, the authority to mastermind and facilitate trades of that magnitude if you are not turning over your entire organization to him. And when he deals Q and sauce, which you could argue and you could whatever, however you feel about it, great trades, great value, whatever you want to say about that. Those are massive trades. Those are controversial decisions because these are blue chip players, franchise guys that you drafted that were young enough to be part of your future, and you decided to part with them. And you don't do that. You don't allow a head coach who is operating also as like the pseudo general manager, allow him to do that if you're going to sit up there and fire him this next off season, unless you are more inept and incompetent than we could ever imagine. Jose in Brooklyn wants to chime in. Is it really a war? Because Jose in Brooklyn loves this kind of stuff. For whatever reason, I can't quite figure out why Jose gets so charged up. It's like a woman flirting with him. He gets excited when Aaron Glenn's going off on the media or playing these silly games. He says, is it really a war with the New York media? I am just seeing the media get mad because AG is not acting how they want him to act. AG has been a player, a scout, and now a head coach in New York. He knows movers and shake. None of that has anything to do with us asking you about injuries. There is nothing wrong. I can see if people were disrespecting him. If there was something that was being done wrong and he got put onto it and wanted to nip it in the bud, or he wanted to use his authority as the head coach of the team and say, nah, I'm not messing with y'all. I don't mess with you. I could understand if something was done wrongly to him. They're simply asking legitimate questions that head coaches around the league have to answer. Who is your quarterback? What's the deal with your best player on offense? So let's not sit here and act like something nefarious is going on. These media members, they got it out for Glenn. No, they are asking legitimate questions. So if you want to defend this silly behavior, then you can do that. But don't house it as, oh, he's just seeing seeing the media get mad. AG's not acting how they want him to act. The hell are you talking about? Acting how they want him to act. You mean disclosing an injury that, by the way, is mandated by the league because of how involved they are with gambling and fantasy. So all I'm saying is you could be the tough guy, all you want to be. That doesn't tend to work out for people like you, especially devoid of a resume, devoid of some history of accomplishments. It just comes off as foolish and unnecessary, which is the most important thing. However you feel about it, the most important thing is it's so unnecessary. I'm not asking him to be lovey-dovey. It's not like they're asking him, hey, Aaron Glenn, Drake May is probably right now a top 3 MVP candidate. Him, Jonathan Taylor, and Matt Stafford. What defensive scheme do you have designed to stop him, knowing that he has been a quarterback subject to taking too many sacks this year? Can you give us, shed some light on what your defensive scheme will be? Then you can have a problem. Hey, AG, what is it that you've noticed about your team on special teams that has led to some of the success you've had in returns? That's something you can take exception to. Hey, Breece Hall on that screen pass. Is that something we're going to see more of in this game? You don't want to disclose that? That's cool. My man, we're asking you about Garrett Wilson's knee. Come on, Jose. Like, be better than that. The problem is, don't just blindly defend for the sake of doing that. I can't stand the media. So stop doing that. And I've said this before, and I could talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. It's my damn show. One of the unintended, or maybe it was an intended consequence, because we're seeing this in politics, and we have the last decade with the current president is now has spent the last 10 years sowing seeds of doubt into the minds of people that go against the media. So in other words, the media, the big bad media, are looked upon as evil, at fake news, because you're sowing those seeds. It's now allowed the general public who agree with you, who are influenced by your words, to now take on that passionate disdain for the media. So everything done wrong to the media, they agree with. And this is like trickling down into sports. So where fans hate the media. Like, how many times I got to see a Jet reporter tweet something out? And I'm like, oh, this is useful information. You go in the comments. Oh, why are you so negative? Why are you so negative about the Jets, who have spent the last 15 years missing the playoffs, who spent the last 10 years finishing under 500, who spent the last 2 decades looking for a quarterback, looking for a head coach, looking for a general manager? Why are you so negative about the Jets? Y'all must be on some crack, to be honest. It drives me crazy. So when I see Jose say something like this, it just illuminates what I've been talking about. And it's the fact that y'all are so anti-media. We are now in approval of a head coach being petty when asked about an injury status to his best player. That's where we are. My thing is, what has he shown to deserve the chance to draft a quarterback, which is priority number one for this organization? We just saw the Pats axe Mayo to bring in the guy for May, and it worked. It has worked, which is what scares me, man, because what if LaFleur shakes loose? Now, the problem is the Patriot organization and the Jet organization are on two opposite ends of the spectrum. So you have Vrabel, a guy who, played there, won Super Bowls, and had a connection and a relationship with Robert Kraft. So that was just a marriage destined to happen. Shout out Kevin Wildes, the doorstep of destiny. And the Jets are not that, right? The Jets are not what you would view as an optimal destination for anybody. So you always are going to worry about whether the best coaches, the elite coaches, want to actually go work for Woody Johnson. Why would they, if you are someone with half a brain? But my fear is, let's just say you go through the back channels and the LaFleur or Harbaugh or Tomlin is interested in coaching your team. We're just going to say, nah, no. So to wrap this thing on up, the Jets and the Giants should both be interested in Matt LaFleur. If he shakes free, if he becomes available, because the Packers failed to meet expectations this year, the Jets and the Giants should be on that. I know the Jets are not going to do it. So it feels like I'm wasting real estate, right? It feels like I'm having a pointless conversation. I am just saying they should absolutely be interested, but it's more appropriate to discuss it from the Giant perspective, because the Giants do have a head coaching vacancy, assuming Kafka doesn't do enough to win over John Mara's support and he gets promoted to the head coach, which I don't think is going to happen. But I'll leave you with this, and this is something that I said earlier. Because of what I saw on Ian O'Connor's Twitter timeline about Joe Shane still under evaluation, and I know we had the statement yesterday that said he's going to help lead the coaching search. Because of what Ian dropped down there as a nugget, like, hey man, we get to January, they still have a decision to make on Joe Shane. If I'm a Giant fan, I have to be encouraged. This is a great point, by the way. Kevin Zwicker, Woody Johnson, and the Jet staff did fire Mike LaFleur, which I think that actually was Christopher Johnson. Woody might have been in the UK when that happened. But to your point, why would Matt LaFleur want to come work for an organization that fired his brother after 1 year? But back to the Giants. If any of these big-time head coaches become available and they come to John Mara. So, again, I'll throw out the big names. The Tomlins, the Harbaughs, to a lesser extent, Mike McCarthy. I'll throw in Kevin Stefanski and Matt LaFleur. If those guys become available and in meeting with ownership, let John Mara know, or whoever's going to be running these meetings, because, I know John Mara is dealing with his health situation right now. So thoughts and prayers to him. Whoever is going to be ultimately making this decision for the Giants, if those names that come with resumes, with cachet, tell them, I want to pick my general manager, how are you saying no to LaFleur, to Tomlin, to John Harbaugh? You're not saying no. Because I've got to protect Joe Shane, who's 20, 40, and 1. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. So if you're a Giant fan, fret not, man. You got a lot of hope. We'll end it here. What are the chances the Jets upset the Patriots this Thursday? I think the Patriots are 11.5-point favorites. The Patriots might be the best team in the AFC, dog. Might have the league MVP at quarterback. Might have the coach of the year. So I don't give the Jets much of a chance to beat New England. This is New England back to being the Patriots and stomping the Jets out. So I anticipate a blowout happening. By the way, I am going to be on the radio in New York for ESPN 7 to 9 on Thursday night. So hit your peoples up. 7 to 9. So I'm going to be leading up into kickoff. Then I'll be on the air during the game. We get to have a little watch party. But 7 to 9 p.m. Thursday night, I'm going to be on the radio in New York. Get to chop it up with y'all about the Jets and the Patriots. We'll rap about the Giants as well. And maybe we get some baseball news. I love how baseball, after one of the most watched World Series in the history of the sport, one of the most watched, instead of capitalizing, instead of striking when the iron's hot, in the form of free agency that lights up both the NFL and the NBA, it's just like nothing. Dud. Crickets. Great job, baseball. Holla at y'all. Ty D. Butler, Instagram, X, and on YouTube. Hit me up. Give me a follow. Deuces.